Hello, my name is Grant Joyner. I am the founder of Vineyard Wealth Group. I'm a certified financial planner and enrolled agent. And today we're going to be talking about Social Security optimization and specifically when it makes sense to file as early as possible at age 62. A lot of the advice online from professionals and that you'll see out there is delay as long as possible. There's a lot of good reasons to do that, but there is no guarantees, and so there are times when it makes sense to file early, and that is what we're going to be diving into today, and when it makes sense to file for Social Security at 62. So before we dive into the top 5 reasons, we're going to go through just a lay of the land and when you can file for Social Security. We've already mentioned the earliest that you can file is at age 62. Each year you file before your full retirement age, or FRA as the Social Security calls it, you get a 6.67% reduction in your benefits. So in this case, we're using 67 as the full retirement age. You file at 62, you're getting 70% of your benefit. If you file for Social Security benefits at your full retirement age, you obviously get 100%. And then for every year you delay, you get an 8% increase up to the age 70, and that's the max you can get. So in a case like this, you'd get 124%. So you can see, obviously, the rationale for waiting it longer is that not only are you getting a higher amount, but Social Security is indexed for inflation, so that amount will compound at a higher rate. What it doesn't account for all the time is that that's 8 years with no income if you're retired. And there are no right or wrong answers here. What you're trying to do is optimize for your set of circumstances. And so let's jump in to the top 5 reasons that you might file for Social Security early. The first one being you retire and you simply need the income. Second being that you have a shorter life expectancy, you don't plan to live that long. Third is protecting your portfolio. You might have the money, but you don't want to pull money out of your account. You might have a big age gap with your spouse. This is the number one reason I typically recommend people file for benefits early. And then also, there are times where you have members of your family, whether it's a spouse or a minor child, that can tap into Social Security benefits, but not until you file. So these are the top 5 reasons, and we're going to jump into all of these in a greater depth as we go through this presentation. So let's start with claiming at 62 with or without income. Okay, and so obviously if you are claiming at 62, you get your income starting immediately, your portfolio stays intact, keeps compounding, you can unlock benefits, you can suspend your benefits. So it used to be that you could file for benefits at age 62 and then you could wait until age 70 and then sort of refile and pay everything that you paid back, keep any interest and dividends or growth on that. And they figured out that there's a little bit of a loophole there. So they closed that. Now you can file and you have 12 months to basically undo what you did. You'd have to pay back any benefits that you received. But normally when people file, they're making that decision for their retirement period. So if you don't have the income, you can have stress, you can have income gaps, maybe you're racking up debt. So there's a lot of good reasons why if you don't have income, filing for Social Security, it's kind of straightforward and obvious why you would file for it earlier. And another big factor is longevity, right? So when you're filing for it as a single party, this is far more applicable, but longevity always matters. It's just when there's one party versus 2 with a spouse, you're trying to factor for the maximum of both life expectancies. But on a single basis, right, shorter life expectancy favors filing early, so you want to pay attention to your health and family history. And the break-even ages here, you can see that this is a linear chart, so it's not factoring in necessarily growth, but at age 62 versus 67 versus 70. And normally, basically the math will tell you if you're going to live past 80 to 81, you want to file later, so closer to 70. If you're going to live until your late 70s, then maybe at full retirement age, and anything in mid 70s or earlier, you want to file as early as possible. Okay, so one of the things we talked about is that if you aren't filing for Social Security benefits and you are retired, you're going to be pulling more money out of your portfolio early. Now, there's some benefits to doing that because you can de-risk the portfolio early in the retirement where you might have fear of recessions or market pullbacks. But there is some downsides to draining the portfolio early if it's the largest growing asset that you have, right? And here's a visualization, a hypothetical example. This is higher withdrawals earlier in retirement until we're waiting to get to Social Security. And then you can see same portfolio, but lower withdrawals earlier. You're allowing that portfolio that is growing to stay invested over the long term, right? So some real benefits to the portfolio. And this is a factor when we do any retirement plan. We're taking into account sort of all of these factors as we look at this. So let's look at collecting early to unlock benefits for your family, right? So there are times, specifically with minor children or even your spouse, that you cannot receive benefits from your spouse or from your parent until they file. So in a case like this, we're going to look at a situation where we have a large age gap between spouses. One spouse is 82 in this case, and the other one is 62. So big age gap. And this is a textbook example of why you would want one to file early. Because we talked about that interplay, one person versus two people. And the key here is that while both spouses are living, one spouse is getting their benefit and then the other spouse is entitled to their benefit or 50% of their spouse's benefit at their full retirement age. So you're getting two payments while both spouses live. But once one of the spouses pass, that two payments then goes down to one payment, and it's the higher of the two. So in a case like this, the spouse that is age 82, we would prefer for them to delay until 70 to maximize their benefit. And then the other spouse, there's not as much of a benefit to delaying because they're delaying for a payment that they might not get for very long. And so let's walk through kind of what this looks like from this perspective, right? So we have claim at 62 for the younger spouse. They're getting roughly $3,000 a month versus $4,000 a month. But ultimately, if they waited until 67 to get $4,000, they're going to be shifted over to their spousal benefit eventually once the other spouse passes. And so this is a textbook example of file at 62, get something while you can, get two payments while you can, because you know eventually you're going to get down to having one payment, right? And so the strategy here outlaid is that the younger spouse is filing at 62, getting something while they can. Years 1 through 8 they're delaying, and eventually they will be stepped up to the survivor benefit. So there's spousal benefit while your spouse is alive, and then there's survivor benefit after they pass. And there's some nuance to that. But basically, this case, almost always when you see this big age gap or you see situations where incomes are really similar or even very disparate, it can often make sense to have a 60-70 split is kind of what this strategy is called. Okay, so let's then jump into unlocking benefits for your family, right? So obviously the spousal benefit that we talked about, you can only receive that if your spouse is filing for a benefit, but there are also other times where this makes sense. Minor children, if you have dependents in your household under the age of 18, they might be able to benefit from your Social Security record up to 50% of what you're receiving at your full retirement age, but only if you're filing, right? So the benefit is age limited. So again, if the kid is 16 or 17 years old, they could be getting a benefit, but only if you're filing for it. So it's not always the reason that you should do this, but it's something that you want to take into account as you're looking at when you should file for Social Security, right? And again, this sort of outlines, spouse can't take it, a spousal benefit until you file for it, and same thing with minor children. So you want to coordinate these things and make sure that you have a cohesive strategy that works across all of your family members, and it's for you, your spouse, and potentially minor children, right? So we've gone over a lot of the reasons why Social Security filing at age 62 might make sense. The reality, again, I'll say is there's no right or wrong answer definitively. The only way to figure that out is you'd have to know exactly how long you're going to live, exactly how well the economy is going to do, how well the market's going to do, what your expenses are going to be. So what we're doing with Social Security is trying to optimize a bunch of variables that we don't know exactly what they're going to be, but we can have decent estimates of this. Social Security decisions cannot be made in a vacuum, right? They have to be part of a bigger picture retirement plan where you need to factor in all of your income sources, your assets, your expenses, your potential healthcare costs, and other things that might pop up. And then once you have all of those other variables accounted for, that's when you can really start to optimize what Social Security strategy works for you. If you don't have a Social Security strategy, if you don't have a retirement plan, our information's up on the screen. You can email, you can call vineyardwealthgroup.com. We put together complimentary retirement plans for anybody that doesn't have one, right? So we believe in the value of giving value before we ask for anything in return. So if you're looking for help making the Social Security decision, or really just any help that you need with Social Security, Medicare, retirement planning, portfolio planning. We are happy to help. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you like and subscribe and share with a friend. We'll be putting out more content just like this in the future. And thanks for watching.